count it down from 3 and 2 and 1, and we are live. Welcome to the live stream show. And today we are going to talk about how you can own your worth. Oh wait, I'm getting a really funky echo. That's so weird. Where is that coming from? I'm sorry, guys. Oh my gosh, there must be a browser thing open here somewhere. And I need to click it off. Just a second. This is probably only happening to me. But every 30 seconds, I hear myself say the thing I said 30 seconds ago. Oh, here it is. I found it. Whew, thank goodness.
Nice.
All right, let's try that again. Oh, go with the live, the joys of going live. I want to just say that I model everything that has to happen with live video, and I do it in real time. And this is just one great example of, even though you get the best prepared moment, things can still glitch up, and you just have to kind of go with it and laugh and be like, yes, I did it, and I'm going to do it again. So, as I was saying, today our topic is own your worth. And this is the thing, like, if you're a type of freelance entrepreneur, like I basically work with clients, and if you're in this kind of situation, or if you're a professional and you're working within a fairly large-ish organization, there is a challenge of realizing and really knowing your true value in whatever it is that you're doing. And the honest truth is that most of us, and I've been there too, and maybe I'm still doing it, I don't know, and I'm going to find out today. Most of us undercharge, and we undervalue when we go to the table and say, this is what I want to get paid for what I'm doing. And whether you're charging a client a service fee or whether you're negotiating your salary, we tend to think, well, I just have to go over here and settle because this is all I'm going to be able to get. And my guest today, her name is Ashley Paré, and she is an executive coach and consultant. And this is what she does. She helps mainly women understand their true value and to break through the limiting beliefs, that glass ceiling we hear about, that's both external as well as inside of you, so that you can come up with the courage, the stamina, that inner fire, whatever it is that you need, so that when you get into those situations where you have to say, look, here's what I offer, and here's what it's worth, that you're actually getting not only what you want in terms of your fee and the money that you're earning, but also all the other parts of your life, so that you're not following the advice that, oh, in order to do this, I have to act like men, or anything like that. So I'm really excited to have Ashley here. She's a former TEDx speaker. She's a brilliant person. She's actually based here in Boston. We haven't been able to see each other for the past year, so it's a delight to have her on today. So let's hit the intro and get on with the show. Oh, and let's see what's happening here. I got to do this. Oh, I see what's happening. Just a second. Just give me a moment. I can do this. Here we go. The intro is coming. Yay. Recorded live in Boston, Massachusetts, this is the Livestream Show. In a world full of underexposed entrepreneurs, the Livestream Show is your gateway to a global community of live stream pioneers who dare to go live and create something special and unexpected, which could only happen because it was live. I'm your host, Brad Powell. Let's get on with the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Hi, Brad. Great to have Great to see you and great to be here.
Right, right. Likewise, really nice to see you. Really good opportunity for us to talk. And this particular topic, where I'd like to start, is actually metaphorically, the whole issue of the glass ceiling. That's a big topic. And my impression of what we refer to as the glass ceiling is that it's an evolving thing. That what was a glass ceiling 20 years ago, 50 years ago, like when my mother was entering the workforce, it's changed. Like it's not as good as or as high as it could be by any means, but things are different. I mean, we have a woman who is the vice president of the United States, and we have a woman who is the Speaker of the House in our government. So if symbolically we have some models out there where people feel like it looks like they may have broken through in their own way. So when you think about the glass ceiling, which is like the things that are limiting every one of us, especially women, how do you see it? Where is it these days? What's the current state? I know, a good question, right?
Yes, you're starting us off really strong. So, I mean, yes, things have shifted, but at what cost to our communities, our society, for women and our families? Because the progress is slow, and the fact that we as women are still fighting and still that we're still talking about it, to me, means that it's still healthy and alive and ingrained in our systems in many ways from the external glass ceiling perspective. And yes, some women have broken through, but again, there's a massive cost and a lot of sacrifice along the way, and a lot of emotional labor to get to those places. And so I have seen more models of women in positions of power and influence over the last 10 years of my career versus the first 10 years. And I think it's good that we're having this conversation, because the more that we're aware of what the systematic roadblocks are, we can continue to break through them. So, I believe it's still there, and it shows up in sneaky ways. Even though we have a woman as a vice president, which is huge, we're still in the U.S. behind in many cases compared to other countries, especially in regards to parenting and leave. And, we finally have a woman as a vice president. We still haven't broken through the presidential glass ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's just talk about that for a second in terms of this past year has been much more difficult for women than for men. And that's primarily because schools weren't happening, like in-person school going wasn't happening. So all the children were home. And not only were they home, but they were struggling in terms of learning virtually. And the younger the child, the more attention and help they needed in that process. So women, professional women especially, were all of a sudden dealt this really big responsibility that wasn't normal. And so, like in the work that you've been doing this past year, I mean, how's that been felt? What are you seeing in the folks who have been like literally with their hands completely full, a much bigger full plate than they've had any time previously?
Yeah, I mean, the burden of childcare has always fallen to women, and although we have felt like we've made progress there, I think the pandemic has shown us that we still have way more progress to make, not only from a workforce perspective. So I think some of my clients worked within companies, especially in the tech space, that were pretty flexible and understanding. I know one of my clients specifically created boundaries, or she was not going to be available between 11 and 2 every day because she did split shifts with her husband. and that was okay. And she was at a director and senior director level in that organization. But other organizations and, you know, the industries that you had to either still show up to work to get paid, or you were not used to work from home environments before the pandemic, they've really struggled. And I know women that have had to leave their jobs and either create their own business or try to find income or really just collect because their company told them as women, well, you know, because of the pandemic and we know you have a child and you're not able to make some of these meetings, or if you need time off to take care of your child, then, you know, it's not going to work out. So I've seen the gamut in terms of how this is impacting us in the workforce. And I think the opportunity has become, right, how do women own their worth in their relationships and partnerships? So how do you divide out the homework, right? The conversations that may have never happened in partnerships and relationships have had to happen. And I think, again, the burden maybe have fallen to women to have these hard and often difficult conversations, but creating like an at-home job description for you and your partner has been one way to kind of share the I don't even want to say burden, but share the amazing opportunity and really, I mean, gift to raise a child. It's really up to if you have two children at home, right? I mean, sorry, two parents at home. And for the single parents, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine the struggle there. And that's why the pandemic has burdened women more.
Yeah, I really love that concept of the at-home job description. And, you know, you could divide that up, and yeah, that's a great thing. So in terms of, so this works in all realms. Like, let's go a little bit deeper with, okay, so I want to work on not just owning my worth, but being able to communicate that value in all settings, you know, where I'm feeling like things are not equal, or things are disparate, or I'm not being regarded in the way that I am, in like actually bringing value. And that obviously works in both a work setting and your home setting. So if you're at home and you have the lion's share of a certain kind, all these tasks, and it's just sort of taken for granted, like, yeah, of course, that's what you do, then obviously you're not being valued there properly. And the same thing in a workspace, like when a company turns around and says, well, because you have kids and you have to go hang out with them, we don't, we're going to replace you with somebody who doesn't have those needs. And that's just like, I don't know, like those, I wish there was some sort of trigger in our society where those companies would be punished in some way in terms of their brand value, would decline. Because to me, it's just like, it's just something unreasonable. It's like, well, first of all, why is it the women who are being punished like this? Why isn't this also landing on the men? And second of all, what kind of a way to treat your supposedly valued employees is that? Like, I don't know, like, how do you, when you have somebody who's in any kind of situation like it, do they have to sit there and go, okay, fine, roll over, I'm not going to do this? Or is there something going on right now, I would think, as much as any time, pushing back against that kind of attitude in the corporate world?
So if we go back to the glass ceiling for a minute, right, there's still not enough women in positions of power and influence in organizations, which has, right, really shown us the trickle-down effect of, why business decisions have impacted, right, people, and mostly, right, women and women of color more negatively, especially women of color. So this goes back to, right, my raison d'etre, which is, right, helping, supporting, inspiring women to step into their power, to be leaders, to speak their truth, and kind of let go of that fear of a negative consequence. And all of this comes, right, in order to feel confident enough and safe enough to speak up and say, dear employer, or dear boss, or dear partner of mine, like, this is not working for me. Here's what I need to make it work. Like, even to be able to get to that place, that's a place of privilege. Like most people right now are struggling like never before. In the past year, there's been a lot of fear, right? Both from a health perspective, but also money perspective. And when we're in a place of fear, it can feel like we have no choice but to suck it up, and just take it. And I think part of that was happening for many women. And now we're at this place where women not only were taking on more work at home, but they were taking on more work at work, because if employers were laying off their workforce, the people who were left were working double time, overtime, right? And working from home, people are working more. And so now I'm really working with clients who are finally ready to say, you know what? Here's all the extra responsibilities I've taken on. Here's how I've helped our business survive through this change and transition and challenging time. And I want to be paid and recognized for that. And so it really does start with, whether at home or in the workforce, you owning the value that you deliver. So you owning your job description, you owning the responsibilities that you take on every single day, and you owning that impact that you deliver. And that requires time and space and self-reflection to get really clear on, hey, what is the value that I deliver? Why, if I left my organization right now, why would that leave a hole? And oftentimes we have to go outside of ourselves and ask for feedback to really see our impact, because we're our own worst critic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, we can get a little more specific there around, it makes me think of the Wayne's World scene where they get in front of the rock star and they go, "We are not worthy," and they're bowing down. And so, like, in the steps, describes the steps, like, if I want to now start valuing myself in a better way. And it sounds to me like one of the first steps is around mindset, that I need to do some reflection and figure out my own value there and then go forward. But when you're working with clients, do you have like a logical progression that they go through? Is there a step-by-step method that takes them to the place of, okay, now I'm owning my worth and I can negotiate successfully?
Yes, absolutely. And so many of my clients, because they are high achievers, they've already had a lot of success in their life, they come to me and say, okay, what do I do? Like, tell me the steps. Even you're asking, right? What are the steps? And we all want that quick fix. And I was there too. And really, this is a deeper journey. If we really want to untangle our self-worth from our value and our worth at home or at work, right, in what we do and how we show up, then it really starts right from the inside out. And coaches or programs, right, or like, yes, you can update a resume, you can do some salary research online, you can read a blog about, right, how to negotiate, and you can go off and do that. But if you really want to feel more confident and less anxious in how you manage and grow your career and what you say yes and no to, then I take clients, again, from this inner to outer journey, where we really identify, number one, where are you stressed? Where are you feeling stuck? Like, what is the challenge right now? And so many of my clients come to me when they're burned out or right at that verge where it's like, I've tried so many things on my own and I just don't know how to, right, break through or release this. And so we look at, right, what are the fears? What are the self-limiting beliefs that we hold around money and around our worthiness and around being a woman in the workforce? And we look at, okay, what are the real challenges within your specific organization or your specific home? And so we really do, right, that deeper dive, because fear, it feels real, and it really does keep most of us stuck. And the clients that I work with are dreamers, are change makers, are adventurers, and they want to know, just like you've asked, right, how do you get through that fear so then they can take action? And so really, through my coaching work, we identify the fear. I'm able to help them create some tools to manage that. And really, with self-awareness, that's the first step. And from that perspective, you can start putting in place like preparation. Okay, now that I know what I'm afraid of, what do I really want? So I help clients get clear on their ideal outcome. Then I support them in owning their value. So what makes them uniquely qualified, right, and capable and worthy and deserving of more. And from there, I have my clients practice their big ask, whatever it is they want to ask for or go after or let go of, like saying it out loud and preparing. That's the biggest piece of this work, because we don't talk about money in our society. We're not taught how to negotiate as kids and at school. And when we have gendered and racial and economic status, societal pressures on us, that all impacts how we show up and whether or not we feel safe enough to ask and to speak up. So that's a bit of the work that I do with my clients. And it really is this inner journey to believing in themselves more from a place of trust, to then being able to boldly take action.
Yeah. So could you share an example of somebody who's gone through this process? Like, what were they really struggling with and how did they overcome it, kind of thing? And it could be your own personal story if you want, or just, you don't have to name names or anything, but just give us a really, like, just a story of someone who has actually seen the results they were looking for.
Yes. So many of my clients, they come to me wanting to be paid fairly or make more money in some way. And they get that and so much more. And it ultimately is not just about the money, right? And this is the part of the work that I love. It's like, what's underneath and like, what do you really want? What's beyond that? And usually it's around recognition. It's around, right, feeling powerful and capable and being allowed to, right, say yes and no on our own terms without, as you had mentioned before, like just rolling over or taking it. And so, in my own story, it wasn't until I finally spoke up and negotiated with a boss and heard no, right, that I finally realized I was not owning my value. Like, I had stayed silent for so long. I had worked hard and kept my head down, and it was not enough. And all of this resentment and frustration built up. And when I finally asked, right, I made an emotional ask and I got an emotional response. And so that was the beginning of my own journey and why I'm here now, right, and left my corporate HR career to coach and to share and to teach and to motivate people to do this work for themselves so we can change the system. And so one of my clients in particular, she came to a salary negotiation workshop of mine. She knew she was being paid unfairly compared to a couple of the men on her team. And that really, right, angered her and bothered her, but she didn't know what to do about it. And so we worked together. She wanted to ask for a $30,000 pay increase because she was a woman of color, and that's how underpaid she was for doing the same job. And through that journey, she really was able to see that it wasn't about this particular company or this money, but it was the ways in which she was not feeling good enough of asking for more, even though she knew it, right? And in my career, I had access to salary data as an HR leader. And even though I knew, right, what equal or fair pay looked like and what other people were making, me believing that I was worthy of that was a huge journey. And so I was able to help her see how she was being really hard on herself, where she wasn't owning her value. And she built a business case. She sat down with her boss. She said, "Dear boss, I really enjoy working with you in this team. I take my career growth seriously and I want to continue growing and learning here, but it's important to me that I'm paid fairly and competitively for my contribution. And I really want to work with you to get my pay increased, $20,000 to $30,000, because I don't believe, based on market research and my contribution, that I'm being paid fairly." And so ultimately this client went on to get, I think it was about a $15,000 raise at that current company. And it was a gesture in the right direction, but ultimately she left that organization and received, over a $50,000 pay increase plus stock and bonuses to take on a new job. And she told me she would never have negotiated that next new job from that place of confidence had she not done this work together.
Wow. That's a really great outcome. That's cool. So, all right, I'm just curious, are you familiar with the work of Lovey Ajayi? And she has a couple books out, but the most recent one is something called Professional Troublemaker. Have you heard of this? I mean,
No, I don't think so.
well, anyway, she's amazing. She, I think, was just writing a blog for a really long time, and people really liked the blog, so she started turning her writing into books. And the first one was a national bestseller, and this second one, which just came out this last year, is equally best-selling book. But the question I have, I mean, I highly recommend it for you and anyone else who's paying attention to this. It's a terrific book. It's super inspiring. It's right on the same beam as owning your value. But the thing that's striking to me about it is her stance. Is in the title. She sees herself as this professional troublemaker, which is all about really standing up for yourself. And I'm just wondering, like, where's the line that you need, or the needle that you need to thread between this person who's seen as a troublemaker, where you're coming up and you're saying, look, this isn't right, unequal pay, all that kind of stuff, where the higher ups are going to look at you as potentially some sort of trouble in the company instead of being a solution. And so how do you counsel, especially women who are in that setting where, first of all, they're angry, they're feeling like they're not being treated fairly, and there's an emotional attachment there, and yet they still need to sit down and negotiate in a more business-like way, and in with the fear that, well, if I do this, I'll be seen as a troublemaker, or if I do this, they'll just fire me, or whatever, like that scare feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you help them out? Like, what do you say to folks who are sort of facing that particular challenge?
I mean, that's the work. That's the place that you can come to, which I call letting go of the attachment to an outcome, right? Being willing to walk away, right? If you're going to ask, if you're going to speak up, if you're going to put yourself in that position, you have to be ready and prepared for a potential outcome of no. And I support my clients in going for no, right? Really pushing that envelope so that way they know that they're getting the best opportunities and what's on the table for them. And so if you are still feeling that, this is a career limiting action, and you're not prepared to hear no, then there can be some more work that you do. But I think it's really important to decide for yourself, you know what, I am valuable. I know my worth. I know I have options and opportunities. I have a backup plan if this does not go through. Like, if I make my ask and the answer is a big heck no and you're fired, which so many of my clients, that is the worst case scenario, right? What if I speak up and I lose my job? Well, we prepare for that. Well, what if? What if you lose your job? Because in my scenario, I was so afraid to hear no that it went on and on where I stayed silent, that when I finally heard no, right, I realized that all that time, I wasn't afraid of hearing no. I was just afraid of change. I didn't know what I wanted next. I wasn't ready to look the truth in the eye, which was, why do I want to work for an organization that is not valuing me? And so I help my clients really get to that place where they can own their worth and make that decision. And most cases, when you come to the table prepared with a business case and you're a professional in your ask, even if that causes trouble, meaning work for your manager or work for HR to look at their pay programs, then you have to decide if you're okay with that, right? Am I willing to be seen as someone who's pushing the envelope for the greater good of myself and my family and other women, or not? And in most organizations right now, this is the time, right, to be having these conversations. And most of my clients receive positive feedback from their bosses. Thank you so much for being very clear with me. Thank you for preparing. I'm going to do what I can, right? Here are the roadblocks I see. And it's really this process. Now, if you are truly fired for advocating for yourself, then you can see that as a gift that you didn't invest your career with that type of organization any longer.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, being willing to stand up and where you might get a no, that like going for the no, that's terrific advice. All right, so we're coming to the end of our time today. It goes by really fast. And is there one more thing, like you've got the world watching, what would you say to anyone who's feeling like any of the clients that have come to you in the early part of your relationship with them? What would that be?
Just decide what you want and own it. And the first step of that is raising your hand, right? Getting outside of your bubble or those feelings of being stuck or in fear, and just say, you know what, I'm feeling stuck and I'm in fear and I want to do something about it. Like, this is our time as women to step into our power as leaders, and we can do that, right, with support, with community, with tools, with the intention of, you know what, I deserve more, I am worth more, and I'm not going to settle for just an okay career. I'm not going to settle just for this level. I'm not going to settle not to have a career if I want a family. Like, I want more, and I'm going to look at the ways that I can do that. So my message is, it's possible. It's not always easy, but if you're willing to just decide right now that you want a more fulfilling and abundant and confident future, then it just starts now. And speak up. Say, like, when you see something, say something. They say in the airports, right? Like, at work, we have to start calling out, and at home too, calling out what we see and have these hard conversations, because we're all people at the end of the day, and if we're focused on creating solutions that benefit ourselves and everyone, we can really make some positive shifts right now. Like, this is the time to create our future and the future of work.
Yeah, that's so great. All right, so I know that you've got a couple of things to share with people. So if people want to follow up, want to get connected, or get any of your free trainings, you said you have a webinar coming up. What's that going to be about?
Yes, so our audience right now is the first to hear about my free training, my free masterclass I'm doing on the 18th of August from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. It's called Power Moves, the 5 things that are keeping high achieving women stuck. So I'll share a link. You can register for free to join my masterclass if you want to really get clear on how to get unstuck moving forward. And I'm also gifting our listeners today with my ebook, Own Your Value. It's a guidebook on how to actually sit down and get clear about your value. And that's my free gift for your audience.
All right, nice. Yeah, so I'll make sure to have links to both of those in the show notes, as well as in the comments down below. All these videos that are out there across the interwebs. And thank you so much, Ashley. This has really been great, and actually well-needed conversation. We need to be having this conversation more often.
Yeah. Thank you, Brad, for having me.
Yeah, and for you guys who are still here, what I have to say is, after this kind of conversation, wherever you are, like if you are in a position of authority in the work that you do, if you are in a position where you are feeling like not so much authority, look around you and what can you be doing to help solve this particular issue? I mean, what's like one thing, someone you could reach out to today to carry this conversation further? Because this is something that needs to just keep moving and keep evolving and keep expanding, and more and more. I mean, in my own little world with the video thing, so many people are struggling with simply owning their value when it comes to simply showing up in a virtual way like this, like facing the camera. If you think facing your boss is hard, you just try facing that camera lens. It can be really hard for a lot of folks. People, I mean, it's the same thing as public speaking. People like prefer to be buried than to get up in front of a public audience on stage. So these are all things that we need to work on. These are all things where there are limiting self-beliefs inside of each one of us that we can start busting through and owning our value, because whatever it is that you do, your work has value and it has meaning. And the world, there are people in the world who want to hear from you. There are people in the world that you can serve. There are people in the world who have problems and issues that you can help solve. And in this time, right now, this is needed more than ever. So that's my big takeaway from this conversation. I really appreciate Ashley coming on and helping to propel this. I hope you enjoyed it. And stay tuned next week when we go live Thursday at 11. And if you want to subscribe to the audio version of the live stream show, just go to thelivestreamshow.com and you can be a subscriber and get it on your phone, which is actually one of the better ways, especially if you're busy and you prefer to listen to this while you're, walking your dog or doing your dishes or whatever. So until next week, I will see you. So long, everyone.